mean, what do you want to do?
I don't know. We don't have an intro. Let's go. Welcome back to the Glaziar Gaming podcast. I am Mychal Glaziar.
And I am hungry.
Welcome. This is episode 13. And we just want to say before we get started, because we do have a really good one for you today. If you've been liking the podcast and you've been liking all the clips lately, make sure you show that. Make sure to hit that like button, but don't hit it hard. Hit it like post-prom. And make sure to subscribe if you've been enjoying it. I've been putting in a lot of work, putting out those videos, putting out the clips. I've gotten a lot of comments lately, and the Twitter interaction has skyrocketed. So if you haven't seen that or seen us on Twitter, check out Twitter. It's just at Glaziar Gamble and at JJ Jaffetplane, and you'll see us there. We've got some clips even now that are not going on YouTube, are just going on to Twitter. So if you want to see all the content.
Everyone I've been seeing, I've been liking, I've been watching them, I've been liking them, and I've been retweeting them. So
there's one that comes out this Sunday, or Saturday, that if you missed the podcast last week, at least see that clip on Twitter, because I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, now that that's out of the way, the obligatory YouTube smash, like, and subscribe, yeah, really helps us out. Let's jump into it. NBA, just like we always start with NBA. So, Timberwolves, Vanderbilt.
Vando.
Got an extension.
Yep.
But he's not the only Timberwolf that got an extension.
Our backup point guard. Also, fan favorite. He's 5'11", I think. He can get up and dunk. I don't want to compare to Tyus Jones because they're different players. But where McLaughlin probably lacks in Tyus' shooting, he's more energetic, and he's kind of all over the floor. J-Mac is.
Jordan McLaughlin is the other guy that got the extension. As a Detroit Pistons fan told me, he calls him McLaughable, which I think is a terrible, trying to mock him. But, apparently that's what some other fans...
Should look at his franchise first before...
Yeah, exactly. But most of the teams that have, rivalries with Timberwolves that are near Minnesota are all in the Eastern Conference, because Timberwolves should probably be in the Eastern Conference, too. That's been a whole thing for years. But anyway... Two of our young guns locked up for 3 years, I believe.
Yep,
2 years with a player option.
Yeah, so Vando's roughly $4.5 million a year. McLaughlin's $2 million.
Now, were they 3 years or were they 2 years with a player or a team?
I think it's just 3 years.
Okay, because I like the ones without the options. I think option is basically building we're not sure.
I like the team options.
I think player options are given to the superstars. Team options are usually given to players that are unproven, and I just think guys like Vanderbilt and McLaughlin have proven enough where you don't need to give them an option, and the money was so mediocre.
Yeah, I mean,
compared to what the big guys are
not McLaughlin. Vanderbilt's 22, I think. So he's he's a plus defender, and I think he's kind of trying to. They gave him a medium-sized deal because I think in the future they're like, if you play well. We'll give you a 4-year deal that's worth a respectable amount of money.
Yeah.
So
which I think he will. I think he's been doing well, and I honestly think McLaughlin is going to find a way to increase his minutes. He found a way throughout all of last season. It was getting a minute here, 2 minutes there, up more and more.
Oh yeah, I think they like him.
Yeah, so I think he'll make his way up there, to be honest. And Jaden McDaniels was in the same case for a little bit. So
yeah, and now he's a starter.
Now is that Chris Finch's ability to develop? Was that just good picks? Because
they did acquire Ant and Bolmaro and McDaniels prior to Chris Finch getting there.
Right.
But Chris Finch, I don't know if that decision was made for Jaden to just enter the starting lineup, but I know it was basically the whole of Chris Finch's tenure last year was just Jaden McDaniels was in there at the 3, I think. So
yeah. Well, I saw some people saying that some NBA guys, I was talking to I don't know if he's technically a team representative of the Orlando Magic, and he was saying that his talks were saying that McLaughlin and Vanderbilt signings were to help with a potential trade the Timberwolves were looking for. as we know, the only player that I think the Timberwolves have been linked to for trading is Ben Simmons and Miles Turner.
Sure, that's such a small salary that's kind of surprising. I don't know if I.
The only thing that would make sense if that means the Timberwolves think that there'll be an additive salary onto like a Beasley trade.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't believe that. I thought this was just assigning guys that we're building. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I just wanted to let people know.
I'm a huge fan of Vanderbilt. I don't think he hasn't reached his offensive peak yet. I also don't think he's reached his defensive peak, but he's already a plus defensive player, just like Jaden McDaniels, who definitely hasn't reached his offensive peak yet.
No, he's going to get especially from that clip we saw of him working out.
Yeah.
He's definitely getting better, working on his game. I just wanted to report that because we're not technically media or reporters, but I have been working on actually getting some connections into the league that are reliable, not just Twitter connections. And that was like a guy that I was able to talk to that was what his information was. So I just wanted to report that for you guys. Sticking with the Eastern Conference, Jahlil Okafor signed a non-guaranteed contract.
Okay. I wonder if they go back, like we talked about doing those redrafts, how far he would fall.
He might go down to second round, or undrafted.
Yeah, that's not great.
Can you find 60 players that from that draft or that year, maybe undrafted guys that were better than Jahlil? I don't know if you can find 60.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, his first year he was good with the Sixers.
Right, you might be able to find a team that he'd fit on better that year.
Right,
but yeah,
I mean, he was good on the Sixers.
He wouldn't be a first rounder.
But also, Johnny Flynn was good on the Timberwolves.
Compared to potential number 1 overall pick, he would fall very far.
Right,
but yeah, and then another guy that signed, but this one time was Western Conference, Dante Exum. Signed with the Rockets.
He had a little stint last year, 24 games with them.
He was the Jazz's bench guy, right? Kind of 6-man-ish.
Yeah, he played 24 games with the Rockets last year, so I think they're bringing him back.
I remember when he was coming out of college age, I remember thinking Timberwolves might get him, so I had to pay attention to what he was doing.
Right.
I thought he looked all right. There was a couple guys, I feel like that year. I feel like that was around the same time Ty Lawson was coming around.
Okay.
I feel like it was
Ty Lawson.
Yeah, I feel like it was around that time, but for some reason that's what I feel. And then another player that got an extension was Aaron Gordon, which shocked me that he got $92 million for 4 years.
I think a lot of people were like, he may not be worth it. But like they said, they traded all those assets for him.
I think that's why they had to, basically. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like the only reason they gave him so much was because of his potential to get back to what he was in Orlando.
Sure. But
also because of what they gave up to get him.
Right.
If you can get Aaron Gordon back to what he was doing.
If the Nuggets can get healthy, it'd be fun to see what they could actually do.
But he wasn't doing great.
Yeah.
When they didn't have Jamal Murray.
Right.
When Michael Porter Jr. wasn't playing max minutes, and he still wasn't.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Still a better contract than John Wall.
Better contract than Kristaps Porzingis too.
Yeah.
Speaking of John Wall and Kristaps Porzingis potentially, Rockets say they want to move on from John Wall, and they want to work with him
to try to find a
good
trade
suitor.
Partner.
Yep.
Right.
How?
I don't know. So we talked about this a little bit on I called you on my ride home, and there's really very few contracts that kind of match up with John Wall's $44.8 million or whatever. And one of those is Kristaps Porzingis. So I'm not sure if Rockets would have to give up something or if Dallas would have to give up something, but just a 1-for-1 swap. Dallas, you're getting out of the Kristaps Porzingis contract for 3 or 4 years, depending on how much is left. And then you just have the John Wall, which has 1 year, and then a player option, which he more than likely is going to opt into.
Right.
Because why wouldn't you want to just sit on the bench and collect $45 million? So
Chris Paul opted out of his, and then he got paid. I don't know if...
I
would assume John Wall would opt in, but, if he didn't, then the Mavericks would opt... If they could guarantee John Wall won't opt in, maybe they get a restructure where Rockets pay off that part of that last year, and then John Wall just decides, okay, that payoff of partial last year to make me a free agent after next year is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe that works. Otherwise, if I'm the Mavericks, you might as well take your 20 games of Kristaps.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I can't really think of any other players that could add up to his level of contract. You could try to find a team that currently has like 9 players on the roster.
So like I know a lot of people. The first thought of people is just like, oh, Ben Simmons, but you're Houston. You're trying to rebuild. You're not going to include John Wall in a trade and then include your assets to get Ben Simmons. You're not going to do that.
And as the Sixers, you don't want John Wall.
Exactly.
And that's the whole issue. Is like you want to find a suitor for him, but you can't really send him to a contender because a contender doesn't want to give you the pieces it would require to add up to that contract.
That's why Dallas makes sense for me. They don't want Kristaps.
But then again, with Luka having the second highest usage rate last year, which means he has the ball all the time, John Wall would have to be like a slashing 2 guard, or he'd come off the bench.
Yeah, and John Wall's defense was good when he was at his peak. So maybe they need some more.
Mavericks do want defense, and I'm sure John Wall would add to that. But I just feel like that John Wall still doesn't fit that team with the usage rate of
right. You got to get Tim Hardaway Jr. his shots too.
Exactly. So I think John Wall's going to be difficult to move in general. If he wants to go somewhere specific, he's going to have to give up money. I'm going to assume they're going to have to restructure before the deal goes through. Agree to restructure the contract. Houston will have to agree to pay like $10 million of next year, or that instead of that option, he's gonna have to swallow 20 of that, and then maybe the team that he's trading to will pay the last $10 million of that option. So he ends up getting half of what he would normally have gotten for that year, but he still gets $40 million. Like he'll have to do something like that, in my opinion.
If he's smart, he's just like, I wouldn't mind being traded to Dallas and then make Houston and Dallas figure it out.
Right. I think if he's smart, trade me to some like a contender. Like, I'll eat all that money, sign for a minimum deal, and send me to the Bucks, send me to the Sixers, send me to the Bull. Like just one of these other. He'd probably be good on the Heat,
Wizards.
Yeah, that's what I said. Send him to the Wizards. But yeah, that's it for our NBA news. Wait, no, we have one more.
We have one more. No, the
Bleacher Report. You saw a trade projected by them, or like what they think would be a good trade.
Bleacher Report article.
Because we mentioned the Timberwolves potentially being linked to Ben Simmons.
Right.
We had a couple videos about Ben Simmons. That's what people seem to be wanting to listen to us talk about.
I've got the final offer that I think I would do for Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I think. So here's the projected one. And you give yours.
So the article was, what would the Timberwolves have to give up with keeping their stars?
Yeah, without giving up a star.
Yeah. Which is D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, or Karl Anthony Towns. So
they said Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jaden McDaniels, and then a 2022 first-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, a 2026 first-round pick, and a 2028 first-round pick, all unprotected.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that?
Dumb. First of all, at this point, the Sixers are not going to get multiple first-round picks unless a team is desperate.
Right.
Unless a team is desperate for Ben Simmons, there's just no way they're getting first, or unless they agree to get a couple role players and not a starter.
Right.
And then they'll have to run Thibault and Maxey in their starting lineup, both, and figure it out from there.
Sure.
Like, unless the Sixers agree some direction, I don't think they're getting multiple firsts. Yeah. So the idea of 4, So, Jaden McDaniels was a second-round pick, right?
He was a first-round pick.
All right, so Jaden McDaniels was a first-round pick.
Yep.
Malik Beasley was a first-round pick. And Patrick Beverley, I'm not sure. Undrafted. Yep. So, you're saying that Ben Simmons is
a starter.
But he's a starter. Yeah, so, a starter and 6 first-round picks.
Yeah.
You're saying that Ben Simmons is worth more than Anthony Davis at this point.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all.
I think Malik Beasley would have to be included in that deal.
I do think Malik has to be included if you're not going to give up Russell, Edwards, or Cat.
Yeah.
Which obviously the Wolves don't want to, and I think they'd be dumb to do so.
Right.
Ben Simmons, we've said it every time. For the people that have been getting upset with us, we've said it every time. Ben Simmons would be an amazing fit on the Timberwolves. But Ben Simmons isn't taking the Timberwolves anywhere if it's Ben Simmons and Cat. Yeah. And they gave up D'Lo and Anthony Edwards. Ben Simmons and Cat aren't going anywhere.
Right.
They'll do what the Sixers are doing. They're going to the playoffs and then get home.
You have to add him to a team that has those stars, and you have to keep those stars.
And is the Timberwolves' goal to make the playoffs? Or is the Timberwolves' goal to try to win the championship in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, if you get rid of D'Angelo Russell or Anthony Edwards and you get Ben Simmons, you're going to make the playoffs, but you're not going to threaten.
Is that what you think your peak is? Like, it's the Browns, the Cleveland Browns. They have made the playoffs after their long drought. They're not happy yet.
Right. Yeah.
So the Timberwolves shouldn't be happy with just making the playoffs. No team should. No team should be like, at least we made the playoffs. It's like, you didn't win it all.
Any move you can do to win yourself a championship, you do it.
Right. So getting rid of the Timberwolves have to, which is why first round picks have to be included.
Yeah.
So you had what you think is a good final offer.
Yeah, this is what I would do if I was the owner of the Timberwolves. If I was A-Rod or Mike Laurie.
Right, not Glenn Taylor. But before we move them to Seattle.
I also saw something that apparently Timberwolves ownerships are fine going into the luxury tax.
Good. They should.
Yeah. So
any team that tries to not go into the luxury tax probably isn't winning anything.
Yeah. So my final offer for Ben Simmons, and you could subtract some if you want to, but this is just the max I'd be giving. Okay. So Malik Beasley. Okay. Taurean Prince is available sooner to be traded before Patrick Beverley, because we traded Ricky Rubio for Taurean Prince, a second, and cash, or something like that. So I would include Taurean Prince in that before Patrick Beverley is available, because I think Patrick Beverley is a key piece that we want. So Malik Beasley, Taurean Prince. I would include Josh Okogie. I would include 2022 first-round pick, 2024 first-round pick, and then I believe next year we have 3 seconds. Yep. So I'd include 2 of those seconds.
So 2 seconds, 2 firsts, Prince, Okogie, and Beasley.
Yes. That would be my final offer for Ben Simmons.
I think the Sixers should jump at that. I think Taurean Prince becomes a bench player for them as opposed to a potential starter for the Timberwolves. I think Malik Beasley for them could be a shooter off the bench, could work his way into the starting lineup if they decide, or could be in their end of game lineup. Yeah. If they need a 3.
He's a better scorer than Danny Green.
He's a better scorer than Danny Green. He's a better shooter than Tobias Harris, not necessarily better scorer. And then Okogie is you're losing Ben Simmons' defense, so you get Okogie's wing defense. You just lose the post defense that you get from Simmons. You lose the scoring that you get from Simmons, and you lose the distributing game. But you get to keep the defense.
And you get some picks.
And then you get 4 picks, 2 of them being firsts. And then I would say if I'm the Wolves, I start that by offering that one being lottery protected and the other one being like one of those protections where if it's like a top 20 protected, something like that. And then if you do get top 20, the next year it's unprotected. Right. So I would do that. And then if the Sixers say no, my counter offer would be, okay, both of those picks are unprotected. Yeah. And then my counter offer to that, personally, I think Sixers should jump at that. I think that is a great signing for both. The Timberwolves lose some scoring and lose their future, but again, Simmons, D'Lo, Ant, McDaniels,
Cat, all on
the same team.
Vando, McLaughlin, all Beverly. On the slate for the next 3 years.
So then you have a potential 3 years. Timberwolves are actually a potential deep playoff team. Yeah. And
those first round picks that you're giving up aren't going to matter because the first round picks isn't going to do anything for you. Right.
So I think the Sixers should jump at that, and I think Daryl Morey would take those 2 first round picks and move them anyway.
Sure.
So I think they should jump at it, and I think that'd be smart. I get it if the Sixers fans think that that's not enough. If you want to make it enough, maybe add in a 3rd team or switch Taurean Prince for Patrick Beverley when he becomes available. Sure. I don't really want to lose Beverley. I'm not a huge Patrick Beverley fan.
Right.
Just because he's one of those guys, if he's not on your team, you probably don't like him. If he's on your team, you like him type of guys. Now that he's on our team, I feel like I should like him. Right. But because he's never been on our team, I haven't liked him. But I would say I'd get a 3rd team involved, and maybe I propose this to you kind of as a joke, but it might be able to work. You get the Pacers involved. The Timberwolves also want to get Miles Turner. Right. Now the Timberwolves either throw in Beverly and Layman as well, or maybe Beverly and Vanderbilt, one of those 2 guys they signed, McLaughlin, somebody like that, or just throw in one of those guys. You don't have to include 2. Then maybe another first. One of those 2 firsts that you threw in goes to Pacers. The Pacers, maybe throw in a first and another like future first to the Sixers, and they give up, or maybe the Sixers give the Pacers Thibault or Maxey or one of their young potential guys. There's some pick swaps in there. Like, if you want to
blockbuster.
Big blockbuster. If you want more than what your final offer was, you'd have to get a third team involved, because I think what you said, the furthest high, like the higher up you can go, is making those picks unprotected and swapping Prince for Beverly. I think that's the highest you can go. Like, the offer that you made, there's very little room. Yeah, so the Sixers could say that's not enough.
Having a lineup out there that's Beverly, Simmons, and Vanderbilt would be a crazy plus defensive team. You have no scoring, but I mean,
zero scoring.
But
you'd have slashing.
Yeah. So I mean,
and if Beverly's having a good night, he's a decent shooter.
Yeah, he's a good shooter.
Better shooter than me. So but yeah, I think that's about as high as you can go. And what you offered, I think, is fair for both sides. Good for both sides, and because of the type of manager Daryl Morey is, he would either turn Prince and those picks into something else. $20 million type of fringe all-star level guy. He would turn it into that and keep Okogie for defense, and I think he would do some more work.
Sure.
I think if they are not able to get one of those max contract level players that they've been saying and 6 first-round picks, if they're not able to get that, Daryl Morey will keep trading anyway. So I say if I'm the Sixers, just do it. Cool. And there's our obligatory Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's my final offer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair final offer. And I want Ben Simmons on the team because he fits the team. But we mentioned it. We will not blow up a young roster to do what the Sixers are doing.
Right.
Because the goal isn't to make the playoffs. The goal is to win the championship. Yeah. If the Sixers' goal was to make the playoffs and not win the championship, they wouldn't be trading Ben Simmons. Yeah. So why would the Timberwolves trade for... Yes, they haven't made the playoffs in forever.
Since Jimmy.
And then before that, it was since, like, Kevin Love. Yeah. So your goal shouldn't be the playoffs. They should, after making this trade, they should make the playoffs. But then the Wolves need to keep developing, potentially make another trade next year for somebody if their goal is championship. Exactly. So... that's our thing. That's what we have to say. If you don't like it, let us know what you think. We've had some people respond and let us know what they think. So if you have any ideas, feel free to tell us, because that would be our final offer. If you say no, so be it. Both teams move on. Timberwolves will be potentially another, if they stay fully healthy, maybe 8th seed best out in first round, play-in tournament, something like that. But if they say yes, I think both teams are in the playoffs. So we'll see. Now let's move on to our NFL discussion. DeMarcus Lawrence today. He broke his foot.
Yeah.
And he's out for the rest of the year. So I thought the Cowboys were really impressive week 1. I did not think it was going to be that close of a game. I did think they'd cover, which they did, but... they were a lot better, and I think that their defense being healthy was important. And every year their defense isn't healthy.
Yeah,
since Sean
Lee would get hurt every year, be out for
Van Der Esch got hurt. Jalen Smith kept getting hurt. Yeah. DeMarcus Lawrence now. Randy Gregory Byron Jones kept getting hurt. Even before that was they had that slightly older safety who was a corner. God, I'm blanking on his name. But anyway, they've always had injury issues, and now with him getting hurt, I do think it's a major hit on their team. Their offensive line's still getting hurt. It's the same thing as always.
Yeah.
It's Cowboys have a great roster if they can be fully healthy, and they can't.
Yeah.
And I just don't see... So Randy Gregory, the reason he was moving up was because... DeMarcus Lawrence is on the other side. You can't double one, because now that with him developing, they've actually been able to complement each other on both sides. Now he can get doubled unless hitting them.
And it sucks seeing a good player, like a great player, get hurt, because like you want to see he's former sack leader. Mm-hmm. You want to see those. You want to see the
sacks. That's every team. Like when I play the Packers, when the Vikings play the Packers. I want to see the Packers fully healthy,
Yeah.
but I want the Vikings to be fully healthy, and then I want to beat the other team when they're fully healthy, because then you know where you are. If the other team's hurt, like now Lyle Collins for the Cowboys is also suspended. If you beat the Cowboys right now, you don't necessarily know that you're better than the Cowboys. And I don't know. It makes better football when everybody's healthy. So I hope he can come back next year fully healthy, but it's the same thing with the Cowboys every year, unfortunately. They just can't stay healthy, and we all want to see that. Everybody talks about that roster, partially because of the Cowboys, but partially because the roster is that good.
Yeah, no, they got pieces all over the place. It's just they got to put it together. They got to stay healthy.
And if they're not going to stay healthy, maybe do something about it. I don't know, like make some moves, do something. Now, Panthers, their game. Did you see the mixed reality Panther
thing? Yeah,
it was very, very cool.
Yeah,
but I saw people were saying like that technology is like super inaccurate, terrible. Okay, what's your team doing?
Yeah,
what'd your team do that was that cool? They let a cannon off every time you score a touchdown. Good for you.
We used to do that. We used to have like
fireworks.
Well, now they have banned.
Yeah, now the Vikings have a ship at the beginning that blows fire, and
I thought that got banned too.
When I was there
you feel the heat.
The heat, it's
yeah,
hot.
Feel it,
yeah, that was their last time. So, but now they have like these tiny fireworks.
Sparklers.
Anyway, yeah, but Panthers was cool. If you thought it was not very like high definition graphics, well, this was the first time they've done it, and no other team has done anything like it. So, look at the faces in Toy Story. The very first Toy Story, all the human faces are hideous. Yeah. The first time people delve into new technology, it's not always perfect. Yeah. I thought it looked amazing. Speaking of Panthers, that was week 1. Week 1 happened. We gave our picks last week. And like I said, as a little, like,
schoolboy.
Hello, this is happening. Disclaimer, that's the word.
There you go.
As a disclaimer, I said it. Last year I had 38% on my picks for week 1. This year, the exact same 38% on the predictions and / like bets, and it was 50% on winners, 38% on predictions. So like covering and who covered and that sort of thing. So same as last year. And then last year I ended with like high 60s, almost 70% for the last few weeks, 100% in the playoffs except for Super Bowl. So basically on the same trajectory as last year, so I'm not surprised. It was very poor selections. Yeah, it just we didn't do quite well, but you know,
this is not betting advice.
This is not betting advice. So gonna go over week 2, but yes, all these projections are just guesses, thoughts. This is what I think's gonna happen. This is not betting advice. Don't take it as betting advice. So if you lose money on it, that's on you. Shouldn't have listened to some dude who was 38% in week 1. So this is in like
tonight.
This is tonight. All these games are in chronological order of like as they're happening. Giants versus football team. I said that football team will win and cover. They are 3.5-point favorites. I think they'll win by more than a field goal. Then it's Bengals versus Bears. I think the Bears will win and cover. They are only 2.5-point favorites. I think the Bears can easily win by a field goal. The Texans versus the Browns. I think the Browns win and cover. They are 12.5-point favorites. I think the Browns do win by 2 touchdowns. I put down I would not bet this because that is such a huge difference.
Yeah, and the Texans blew out the Jags last week. So
but the Jags aren't great.
But no one expected the Texans to win last week.
Exactly.
That's why
you stay away because you don't know at this point. Yeah. However, if I think that is like the one I question most. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland wins and the Texans cover that because that's 2 touchdowns. Right. That's a pretty big margin, but I could see them winning like 38-14, like some big margin like that. So I do think Browns win and cover. However, that's a hard one because the Texans did so well, but the Browns almost beat the Chiefs. Browns have a tendency to play down to their opponent a lot.
So do the Vikings.
So do the Vikings, and Stefanski used to work for the Vikings. No. Like it's one I probably would want to stay. I'd want to stay away from. The Rams versus the Colts. I said the Rams will win and cover. They are 3.5-point favorites.
Here's a quick thing.
Was slightly...
Speaking of the Rams, Stafford won
Yep.
Offensive Player of the Week, I think. Do you think he should have?
No.
Because Kyler Murray had 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, I think Kyler Murray should have had the Player of the Week for the NFC, but he's in an LA team and he's on a new team and he's been a story more than Kyler Murray has. So just like Tom Brady won, I think he won some sort of NFC award as well.
Right.
And it's like, you weren't the best in the NFC either.
Yeah.
So just didn't make sense. But yeah, I think that's another one that I'm not sure if the Rams beat the Colts by at least a field goal. That's just what I think would happen.
I think so too.
But yeah, it might be closer than I expect. I said the Bills will beat the Dolphins and cover. I think the Dolphins kept it close with the Patriots. I think the Dolphins and Patriots are both kind of overrated this year. And I think the Bills were weak in week 1, but will bounce back. Speaking of New England, I think they win and cover against the Jets. I think New England, while being overrated, the Jets are the Jets. Jets suck. I think Shannon Sharp did that. Jets suck. So yeah, I think they're 6-point favorites. The Patriots are so.
TD
Touchdown. Yeah, missed extra point potential. By the way, last week, 2 of the games that we said winning were and cover. Half a point. Niners only covered over the Lions by half a point. We said Niners would win, Lions would cover. Half a point. Anyway, the Niners, speaking of them, versus the Eagles. The Niners are 3-point favorites over the Eagles. I think they win and cover. The Eagles destroyed in week 1. They did really well. I don't think that's going to happen again. The Niners are just too good. I think that's the best division in football versus the worst division in football.
Right.
It's right up there with the NFC North. And, yeah, I just...
Hey, now we're in first place.
Yeah, I think the Niners cover and win. That's a theme this week. A lot of the favorites are the people I pick, which is not a good sign because a lot of the people that win a lot of money in like Vegas and sports betting are people that bet on the underdogs. So it's not a good sign. Raiders versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 5.5-point favorites.
Okay.
I said Raiders win outright, but then I put down would not bet. I think until I'm just like 0-6 on Pittsburgh bets, I'm probably gonna keep betting against them. I just feel like they're so overrated, but they crushed.
Right.
I thought the Bills were gonna, I said it, that was my highest scoring game. I thought Bills were gonna win 42-10.
Yeah,
I thought they were gonna kill them, and Pittsburgh absolutely destroyed them. And now Pittsburgh's at home against the Raiders.
Right.
I think the Raiders are really good. I just I don't know. I wouldn't bet it. Okay. They're two unpredictable teams, and I just can't. I can't deal with them. So I think Raiders will win outright. So Pittsburgh won't win or cover, but I wouldn't bet it anyway. Saints, I think they'll win and cover over Carolina. I think 3.5 points will go up by the end of by the time the game comes around. I think that'll be closer to 4 to 5 points.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are going to start voting on or betting on the Saints. With Jameis Winston as your quarterback, you should always expect to win by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you could expect 5 touchdown passes each week.
Yeah.
So.
It's five touchdown passes with less than 300 yards.
Yeah. Probably 148 yards. Something like
it was a very small amount of yards. They were just all touchdown passes.
Okay.
Just let him throw the ball more because every time he throws it, it's a touchdown. Clearly, that's the solution. Broncos versus the Jags. They are 6-point favorites. I think the Broncos win and the Jags cover. I think 6 points is a lot. If that was a 3.5, I would I'm questioning the Jags being able to cover 6 points. I don't know how you feel about.
I never feel confident about the Jags.
Exactly, but I'm thinking so they shut down Saquon Barkley. The Broncos did. The Jags don't know who they want at running back.
Right.
And Trevor Lawrence is gonna be running for his life. Yeah. He doesn't have a great offensive line. Yeah, I picked the Jags to cover, but I'm picking it now. I'm probably wrong on that one. That's another one I'd probably stay away from. Another one I said I would not bet. Atlanta versus the Buccaneers. I said Bucs win because they're 12-point favorites. I said the Falcons cover.
Okay.
Falcons got demolished week
Yeah.
1. Win a game that I thought they'd win. And this is against the Super Bowl champs, but they beat the Dallas Cowboys, who are a good team. I think the Falcons aren't as good as the Cowboys, but I 12 points is so much. But I put down again, I just would not bet it. There's some of these, they're just... I don't get how people can bet so confidently in early weeks. Like, they must have some...
It's just everything's basically 3.5, so it's like...
And they usually give 3 points to the home team, which means even Vegas is like, yeah, everything's a push. We're just giving the advantage to home teams. Like, all right. Speaking of Cowboys versus Chargers. I said Chargers win and cover. Chargers are 3-point favorites. I thought the football team would beat the Chargers last week. Fitzpatrick got hurt. That was their nail in the coffin there. Herbert looked incredible, and I think the Chargers will just keep that momentum going.
Sure.
With the Cowboys injuries. La'el Collins out. That means nobody's blocking Bosa.
Yeah.
They're screwed, and I think Chargers win by at least 3. So 3 points, I would jump. If that's one of those ones. If betting were legal, that's probably if I were to pick one, that's probably the one I pick. Tennessee versus Seattle. I think Seattle wins and covers 5.5. Tennessee looked garbage.
Yeah.
I thought Tennessee was gonna come out and show everybody this year that they.
Yeah, Derrick Henry had 9 yards.
It wasn't
10
good.
carries for 9 yards.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And the Tennessee was supposed to show everybody why they're playoff favorites.
Right. Why Tannehill's an 87,
Yeah. And they look terrible. So until they bring it back, I think Seattle wins by at least a touchdown. So 5.5 for sure. Minnesota versus the Vikings versus the Cardinals. I said the Cardinals win and cover 3.5. I think Cardinals win by more.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it's also a home, so that means Vegas thinks Cardinals are really a half-point favorite if it was a neutral field. So I said I wouldn't bet it because if betting were legal here, I would never bet on Minnesota sports.
Vikings tend to play to their competition, so this is a good team. So you don't know which Minnesota team you're gonna get.
Exactly, and you never know. And plus, I would never, if I were to bet, I would never bet on my home teams because you can't get your heart out of it. You're going to lose money every time. Yeah. So, but my head says Cardinals win. That's an amazing division. Cardinals have to win the harder games like this. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks, and the Vikings offensive line...
Outside of Brian O'Neill,
which is the opposite end. Brian O'Neill will be blocking J.J. Watt. He won't be blocking Chandler Jones. It'll be Ezra Cleveland and Rashad Hill, who Rashad Hill was the 3rd worst rated Viking last week, trying to block a guy who got 5 sacks. So I think the Cardinals win because when Kirk's under pressure, he had great stats under pressure last year.
He doesn't have that much time to throw it.
He just doesn't have enough time. I think, unfortunately, Vikings lose. Last year, none of the teams that started 0-2 made the playoffs. So that makes me sad. And less than 12% of teams that start 0-2 make the playoffs. So I do think Vikings start 0-2, which makes the season a lot more of a struggle to actually get into the playoffs. But with this division...
Right now we're in first place.
Right.
So
the week were to stop... The season stopped after week 1. Vikings would be in the playoffs. Yeah. However, it doesn't. And the Packers played Detroit. So I think after this week, Packers will be back to their first place position. Sure. Anyway, we'll get there. Next is the Chiefs versus the Ravens. I think Chiefs win and cover. They're only 3.5-point favorites. I think the Chiefs are much better than the Raiders. The Raiders beat Baltimore. Baltimore had a lot of mistakes. The only advantage the Ravens have is the fact that it's a home game. So it could be close, but...
Lamar also needs to just hold on to the ball.
Yeah, but he's never had too big of an issue with that in the past. Yeah. So, I think the Chiefs win. I think that it is close. I think 3.5 is fair. They might only win by a field goal, but I do think the Chiefs do win by more than a field goal. They've never beaten Patrick Mahomes, and they say the best thing to follow in betting is trends. Again, not betting advice, but in this, I would pick the Chiefs. And then Detroit versus Green Bay. I think Green Bay is 11.5-point favorites. I think Green Bay wins, covers. It's in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers was talked about all week, and he's going to be like, this is why I told you not to worry. Yeah. He's going to be like, hey, Devontae didn't score last week, but hey, he's going to score again. He's going to score at least once this week. Yeah. And it's just, I think that's out of all there's 2 12-point games and an 11-point game, or basically 12. Out of all the big spreads, that's the one I would pick. And then one little fun thing about all the lines for the week, I thought it was not a single game has an over/under of less than 40. Okay. Every single game says it's at least like the lowest over/under was tonight, the Thursday night football game, which was 40 or 40.5.
Okay.
So and that's the lowest. So they expect crazy. Yeah, and so I don't know if it's the league overreacting, like the sportsbooks overreacting, or if that's just a sign of where the NFL's heading. Like, you should expect every team to score a minimum of 20 points then.
Right.
So you're expecting every team to score at least 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals every game.
And we'll miss an extra point, so.
Yeah. Or 3 touchdowns and a missed extra point. Like, you're expecting there was a couple games that were almost an over/under of 60. So like the Vikings scores. Over/under was like 54.5 or 50.5.
That's about right.
So yeah, that means with the Cardinals being, what were they, 3.5-point favorites? Yeah, 3.5-point favorites. If it was, we'll just say 45. That means that 21 to 24. Yeah, like that seems all right. That just to me that's so weird. When I think defense is so huge, and I love defensive battles. It's a very clear sign that the league is now almost 100% offense. Speaking of the Vikings, the Niners wanted Cam Dantzler.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of reports about how the 49ers inquired about Cameron Dantzler, and the
Vikings clearly were like, no. Because after Patrick Peterson is gone for this year, Cam Dantzler's moving up. Bashad Breeland's not coming back.
Yeah,
if he keeps playing like he did in week 1.
Did not do good.
Which, if you listen to our if you listen to when we were covering
about the OTAs.
In August, we were talking about OTAs. We mentioned how people at the OTAs were telling us Bashad Breeland looked bad. So he's picking up right where he was. He's still learning the system, and Zimmer has a difficult system for D-backs, but
yeah, he said he got exposed a bit, and he needs to buckle down.
He absolutely does. So we can't get rid of Cam Dantzler. The Vikings did lose in week 1, 27-24 to the Bengals. We did not think that would happen.
No.
But what was interesting was D.D. Westbrook was our punt returner. Amir Smith-Marset was our kick returner. And when Kene comes back...
Yep, he should be the guy.
He'll probably be
so
both.
Fast.
Yeah.
He's so fast.
I like D.D. at punt return because he is quick. He's not fast, but he's not super fast.
And you can't put KJ out there because he's your wide receiver 3 now.
Locked in wide receiver 3. He did
had
awesome.
An amazing,
which
3rd and 24 or something like that.
I talked about how KJ has a potential of losing his job this offseason because he did so poorly in his rookie year, and we had rookie wide receivers coming in. Him jumping up and developing into that makes my heart feel good. Because when we drafted him, I was so happy and made me feel good. Speaking of heart hurting, Mick Tingelhoff died.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, old Viking legend. Hall of Fame, pretty sure. So, gone but not forgotten. We had some positives and negatives from the Vikings.
Yeah, so we try to keep, as like you've stated before, we try to stay as positive as possible on the podcast. So we have a lot of positives and then a couple negatives just because it's glaring issues.
Yeah, people in sports in general tend to be too negative.
Absolutely. And if you, I look through the Bleacher Report stuff all the time. Everyone's negative.
My family was texting me halfway through the second quarter of the Vikings game saying, fire Zimmer, fire Spielman, cut Kirk. They were saying, have a fire sale and trade some of our best players. All because they were losing to the Bengals in week 1.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick's week 1 percentage is really bad.
They look at this game and they see just comparatively, Kirk stats, 351 and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers had $138 and 2 picks. So
Aaron Rodgers would have had a better quarterback rating if he spiked the ball every time he threw it instead. I just don't understand. I understand competitiveness brings out aggression. So people, because they get angry, they get negative. when it comes to sports. They want to talk crap about other teams to let them know they're terrible. They use the term poverty franchise way too much.
I've been using poverty a ton lately.
Right, like people use it just all the time, just way too much, and people have to say, "Oh, their team lost, season's over." And
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you look at there's some games where
didn't the
teams didn't
Buccaneers
expect
weren't they
to win.
wild card last year? Pretty sure the Buccaneers were the wild card team, and they were like 7-9,
behind the Saints.
and then 9. Yeah, like they were behind
Yeah.
the Saints. So no team is perfect. No team I'm pretty sure when the Packers won the Super Bowl, they were wild card with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Just
there's teams that got just demolished, right? Like the Packers got demolished. Is anybody down in the Packers? No.
No.
The Ravens got demolished. Is anybody down in the Ravens? No.
Some today on sports networks, I was watching a few people talk about how they would take Derek Carr over Lamar.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Derek Carr is a great quarterback, in my opinion.
yeah.
Or good. You don't have to call him great, but he's not as bad as a lot of people say. I think he's right there with Kirk Cousins type. He's a Kirk Cousins type quarterback. Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
They're all right there. He's a quarterback that can take you to the playoffs, and he can lead you to the playoffs, but you need a team around him to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson can, if he's peak Lamar in a playoff game, you're gonna win. So I don't know. People are worried about
Everyone
the Ravens.
overreacts.
Everyone overreacts. They call it Overreaction Monday on Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
It is Overreaction Monday, but it's overreaction every day in the NFL.
Yeah.
And
Vikings,
just sports, but Vikings for
in general,
sure.
it's overreaction.
They say that teams bring in the attitude of their city. So the Vikings must be super negative in the locker room, extremely passive aggressive with each other.
Just pointing out everyone that should be cut and traded.
Yeah. Kirk probably can't even show up. Oh, man. But anyway, so we'll go through the negatives, and then we'll go through the positives.
Can we just add right off the bat? Negatives? Fans overreactions.
Fans overreactions. We already mentioned Bashad Breeland.
He had a rough day. He gave up the bomb to Jamar Chase. He gave up the touchdown to T. Higgins.
There were way too many penalties.
Oh, yeah.
We
had 91 yards in the first half.
Yeah,
that's the whole football
the Vikings had more penalty yards than the Bengals had yards.
Yeah.
So if you want to know how the game went, that's all you need to know. The Vikings had more pass yards, rush yards, first down, time of possession, and they were still losing. Then Zimmer's challenge.
Yeah, it was super questionable. Justin Jefferson got down to the 3-yard line. We had, it was later in the game. We had timeouts. It was just a questionable challenge. We lost a timeout for it, and then Dalvin the very next play just ran it in.
Yep.
So super questionable.
It was a questionable challenge, but that was all our negatives.
You could have kept the challenge for the. I guess the Dalvin Cook fumble was already.
You could call these negatives, but the worst rated Vikings were Garrett Bradbury, Rashad Hill, and Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
Conklin, first time starting as a tight end for the Vikings, basically. First time he started in week 1 for the Vikings, so there's one reason. Bradbury and Hill. Hill is not viewed as the long-term starter. Bradbury is the biggest concern. And then the Vikings only ran play action 15% of the time. Kirk Cousins is the highest rated quarterback after play action.
Yeah, he's a great play action quarterback.
Last year they ran play action 30% of the time.
Yeah.
So that needs to change. So is the game plan. I said going into the game, my biggest concern was the offensive coordinator who has never called plays before. And that's exactly what it looked like. It looked like a terrible offensive plan.
He's got to air it out a bit more.
Absolutely.
Even though Kirk had 351 and 2 touchdowns, he's got to air it out more.
Air it out? Yep.
Positives.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the positives. We covered the negatives. Good enough. I feel like I just swallowed 17 gushers. It just feels like I just got a bunch of sticky stuff in the back of my throat.
Well, I mean, what we did off.
What we did during the breaks. Positives is... Greg Joseph.
Yep. He hit the 53-yarder.
Did you see who hit a 54-yarder? Or 55 to send to overtime?
Daniel Carlson.
You
know who missed a kick? Possibly win it for the...
You know who missed 3 kicks in a game against the Packers? Daniel Carlson. So.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins was a positive.
Yeah. A lot of people slander Kirk because we lost, but...
Because he's Kirk.
Yeah.
They slander Kirk
351 and 2 touchdowns with... one of the highest QBRs this week. So.
And I also like to go not based off stats. If you were watching that game,
yeah,
it was
the Dalvin fumble,
right?
It was the penalties that
Justin
cost
Jefferson's
us.
butt being down, but it being called not. It's like Kirk Cousins was not the reason they lost. Kirk was just also not a reason why. If they would have won, Kirk also just wouldn't have been the reason they won.
Yeah.
So it's like typical Kirk game. When I watch him play, I don't feel wow. I never am like wow. I felt wow when I feel it when he throws deep balls.
Yep.
Like that.
Well, you mean off of play action? Out of play action?
Off of play action. Or he has some 5 and outs when it goes directly to the sideline. I feel like he is money on those throws.
Yeah. The thing is just I think you need a game plan that can work with it.
But he's not everybody says he's so bad. I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, you can move on from him. And you can be better than Kirk Cousins. But it's hard to find quarterbacks that can put up his numbers. Yeah. If you don't like Kirk, that means you don't like Matt Ryan. You don't like Dak Prescott. You don't like Derek Carr. Derek Carr was led a 13-3 team. Kirk's led a 13-3 team. Matt Ryan's led a 13-3 team.
Yeah.
He's
if you were
he
watching,
was in the top 5 for quarterbacks under pressure. He was in the top 5 for quarterbacks in an open pocket. He's top 5 in deep ball throws.
I believe he had the second least amount of time to throw last week.
Yep, and as we mentioned this last week, as a Viking, in his time on the Vikings, in any quarterback's 4-year stretch, he has the lowest amount of time in NFL history, including his first year on the Vikings where he averaged 1.7 seconds to throw the ball.
Yeah.
No quarterback is good with 1.7 seconds to throw the ball.
Yeah, if you watch that game, it was...
Gets me riled up.
Yeah. The Dalvin Cook fumble, and then all the penalties.
All of our receivers looked phenomenal. Part of that is because Kirk...
Yeah.
Throws a good ball,
but
Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne,
all
looked
good.
Awesome. Conklin didn't, but his stats dropped because of his blocking. But
which
all three,
he had to help O-line, and the O-line looked bad, so therefore he's going to look bad,
right?
Too.
But KJ locked in. Wide receiver
KJ
3,
looked great.
Better than BB, better than BC.
He had a great conversion on a 24-yard conversion. So.
Reliable. Kirk is very much if you prove you're reliable, he'll stick to you.
That's why Thielen had 2 touchdowns this
and
week.
that's also why Thielen will go games with multiple games in a row with 20 targets.
Yeah.
So, KJ Osborne, awesome for him. Michael Pierce had the first multi-sack game of his career.
Yeah, he's not just a run stuffer.
No, which we knew that. Dalvin was the guy we thought was going to be the run stuffer. Pierce, we knew he was going to be good. Awesome. Harry looked awesome. He had really good coverage. It's just that deep ball on Kendricks, or on Jamar Chase, where Breland was guarding him.
Woods was on that side too.
Right. I don't think that was Harry not helping. So Harry looked good. Kendricks was all over the field.
Yeah.
There was a play where he lined up in the A gap, and the Bengals gained 4 yards. And he got the tackle on the sideline. Kendricks looked so good.
Vigil looked good, too.
Vigil looked good.
Right off the rip, Vigil looked good.
And then on the other side, Daniil Hunter.
Yeah, there's this one, he just slapped the guy, slapped the dude out of the way, and it was just uh-oh. Burrow knew it, too. Burrow was like...
Right. This is going to be a bold statement, I think. So I was listening today, and somebody said Khalil Mack's the best pass rusher in the NFC North.
Okay.
I'd rather have Daniil.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bold statement compared to what most NFL fans would say.
Right.
I'll take Daniil. I think as an overall player, Khalil Mack can play linebacker, edge rusher, whatever. Overall player, he's probably more desirable. But if you're saying pin your ears back and rush the passer, I'm taking Daniil every time.
Yeah, Daniil's something else.
He's not human. They got him his money. He's happy, and I'm happy.
Yeah,
so.
we're both happy.
O'Neal didn't allow a single pressure. For the people that thought that he was overpaid, and we talked about that last week, Brian O'Neal didn't allow a pressure. Not just a sack.
Yeah, I think Bradbury had 4.
Bradbury allowed 4 pressures. Jahlil allowed 4 pressures.
Cleveland had 1.
Cleveland
had
allowed
2,
3,
Udo
and
had 2.
Udo allowed 2.
Yeah.
And O'Neal allowed 0.
Yeah. Pretty good for a 78 overall in Madden.
Yeah, so...
He got paid like the second best right tackle in football, and he's,
a second best right tackle wouldn't allow a pressure.
Yeah. There you go. He's known as a run blocker, too.
Exactly.
And so,
but we talked about how his agileness makes him such a good pass blocker. And then the last positive is Vikings are in first place.
Yeah. If the season ended right now, we'd be in first place because we have the closest points for versus points against.
Yep.
So
there you go.
Packers will be in last.
And the best rated Vikings were, number 1 rated Viking was Kirk. Then it was Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, CJ Ham, KJ Osborne, in that order. The last little positive thing we have about the Vikings was I was listening to Darius Butler. He has his own podcast called I'm blanking, but it's like Everything DB. It's a defensive back podcast.
Sure.
And he was talking about the one team that he thought would bounce back. Like the team that looked terrible in week 1 that won't look terrible in the future and he thinks is actually going to turn it around the most. He picked the Vikings. He thought the Colts and the Vikings, but he used to play for the Colts, so he is a little biased there. Yeah, so I think that's a positive when you have an ex-player have something good to say, because a lot of
believes in your franchise more than the fans believe in your franchise.
Because a lot of the media pundits, people, whatever you want to call them, were basically like, I was listening to them when they were doing like recaps of the week. They all basically skipped over the Vikings, like, oh, Bengals, Vikings, Bengals beat a bad team, Vikings played poorly. Go on. Or Bengals Vikings, Joe Burrow was good, and then move on. Like, it was they didn't talk about it at all. So I love hearing that Darius Butler thinks that the Vikings, that was a fluke loss, because it gives you a little bit more faith, because I trust what ex-players have to say, especially not in a media-based setting.
If this is the game that's going to... Like, if this is the game that needs to kick us into gear, and we don't have it late in the year, and then all of a sudden we start questioning how good we are.
Like Josh Allen's rookie year when the Bills knocked our socks off.
Yeah.
When I was at that game, and it felt, my dad and I looked at each other, we were like, this feels weird. Like, all the players were sitting around with their helmets off, talking. They weren't really practicing before the game. We were like, this is weird. And my dad and I were like, are we going to lose this game? And then we got destroyed. Yeah. I think it's games like that every team needs, and... Maybe, because I think that was Zimmer's first loss against the Bengals. I thought that was a big positive. I was happy to hear it, and
let's clean things up and smack around the Cardinals a little bit.
That was my smack image.
You had to have your tongue out, or
yeah. Okay. I need my tongue out most of the time. The air's tasty. So yeah, we'll end on a positive note. Stick with that. We want to strengths of our podcast, of our discussions, is going to be positivity. Feel free to be negative. Just know that if you're negative, especially in comments and tweets, probably going to get shorter responses or no response. Criticism is not negativity, in my opinion. So like saying, oh, but Kirk looked... when Kirk was getting rushed from his blind side, he ended up throwing the ball away 80% of the time. So that wasn't very good. I think that's, like, something like that, that's an awesome criticism, and I want to hear that. What I don't want to hear is, Kirk sucked.
Yeah.
Kirk looked terrible like he always does. No, Kirk's O-line looked bad.
Yeah, like it always does.
Like it always does. And then expand. Like,
explain why you think Kirk didn't perform.
Right. Or not Vikings. Like... I'll talk about the Vikings all day, but if you have another team that you're a fan of, let us know how you think your team did, what you want your team to do to improve, and then if you're a Vikings fan, what do you think they should do next? Do you think it's fire sale time like my family thinks, or do you think this is a fluke loss? Darius Butler's right, and they're going to turn it around, and it's like a 10-7 sort of team. So let us know. That is it for our sports. Thank you for watching. This was episode 13. And we had a lot of good stuff. It was a
A little bit of NBA, a little bit of Timberwolves, a little bit of NFL.
Lots of NFL.
Lots of NFL. Lots of Vikings.
Yeah. So feel free to check out. There'll be clips on YouTube and Twitter. If you've watched this whole podcast and are still watching, thank you so much. We do have a few people that watch all the way through. You guys are super appreciated. You help us out more than you know. That watch time is huge. So feel free, again, like we mentioned in the beginning, like and subscribe. And we'll definitely see you again next week. And I'm glad that you're here. And we hope that you are glad that we are here. Super fun. We'll keep coming back to you. Thanks for watching. GG.
GG.